Coast mostly. I don't think I have any big announcements for all of you. The content for week 3 is put up there, so you can access that now. I have again attached the student calendar, so you can continue to keep up with that and continue to see what's going up, and you can even see like how long things are going to take, etc., etc. I have to update that for stuff. Actually, I don't know if I can update that until tomorrow. Tomorrow I have an English 10 meeting where we're like solidifying what this writing project is going to look like. So there will be more information about that after tomorrow, and I might even post it up there. We'll see. But that is so that's like the CD for today. And now today's lesson does say that the instruction part of it is going to take roughly 60 minutes. The assessment is probably not going to take 60 minutes because there were like 5 short answer questions, like 5 kind of like paragraph answer questions, and we decided to only make that 2 having to answer 5 questions. So the assessment will have an average of 60 minutes. Let's go ahead and jump right into the lesson So in here, oh my gosh, my music was so loud right there. I forgot to turn my music down. I'm sorry, y'all. So that means you probably didn't hear a single thing that I was just talking about, but it's fine. It was nothing important. It was just looking at the schedule again. So if we take a look at this first thing, this looks like in his 1933 inaugural speech, U.S. President Franklin Delano Roosevelt addressed the nation's experience the worst economic depression in its history. Homelessness, unemployment, bank closures, and organized crime were on the rise, while crop prices and the people's morale were on the decline. In such uncertain times, citizens had much to fear. Ooh, they've got a video for us. Oh, hold on. I goofed. Okay, I gotta turn that down, turn this up. Alright, let's do this.
This is preeminently the time to speak the truth.
The whole truth.
Frankly and boldly.
From honestly facing conditions in our country today.
This great nation will endure as it has endured.
And will revive and will prosper.
So first of all, let me assert my firm belief
that the only thing that we have to fear is fear itself.
Nameless unreasoning, unjustified terror,
which paralyzes needed efforts to convert retreat into advance.
So for some of you who haven't actually heard FDR's speech before, they were actually quoting some of the main points of FDR's speech. So that's actually kind of give us a little bit of some foreshadowing about what it's going to be about. So Roosevelt delivered these words to citizens on the verge of panic, and the words were so effective that they often repeated in moments when nations, companies, teams, and individuals are forced to face their fears. And again, our objectives is to analyze a famous political speech from history, access prior learning to evaluate an author's claim or argument, identify choices an author makes to effectively communicate a message to persuade, and describe and explain why the evidence an author chooses is convincing in a famous speech. So these 2 pieces, you might actually have learned how to do some of this from your comm studies class, or at least the hope is that you learn some of this in your comm studies class, because in comm studies, like one of the big things that you do focus on in comm studies is definitely that aspect of like how does a speaker or how does a writer get their message across, and how do they do it in a persuasive way. I mean, that's basically what the point of like a TED Talk is, for example. Like, yes, a TED Talk is informative, but also at the end of the day, a TED Talk is also made to kind of persuade you into taking action towards something. So we're gonna continue kind of breaking that down in today's lesson. So we got a quote up here from the First Lady, Eleanor Roosevelt. So the crowds were so tremendous, and you felt that they would do anything, if only someone would tell them what to do. So over 100,000 people crowded the Capitol to hear Franklin Delano Roosevelt, the 32nd President of the United States, deliver one of the most famous and important speeches of the 20th century. Millions more tuned in on radios, listening to the president's speech, and the thunderous applause that washed over the Capitol on a cold and overcast Saturday morning. Roosevelt took office in a period of unprecedented unemployment, uncertain financial markets, and uneasiness about America's place in the world. In just 1,929 words, the new president restored the hope, confidence, and optimism of the nation. A remark made by a young teacher in the crowd was published in the newspaper the next day and summed up the general feeling. Any man who can talk like that in times like these is worthy of every ounce of support a true American has. So this was a pretty big speech, and again, FDR was taking the presidency during a time when like there were a lot of issues in America at that time. Like we're pretty deep into an economic recession, which means, you know, businesses often, like many businesses, were not doing very well. Many people were losing their homes, losing their property, etc., etc. And so there were a lot of issues. And I want to point out that 1,929 words, that really isn't that many words. Like that's very short, actually. If you think about like a chapter of a novel, most chapters of novels are like around 4,000 to 5,000 words. So the fact that he did it in like roughly 2,000 words, which is like way short, way small, that's pretty impressive. Let's go on to the next one, next page. So what did Roosevelt say to have such an impact? The New York Times reported that over 450,000 letters and telegrams were delivered to the White House in the days after the speech, voicing their support for the new president. Effective speeches like FDR's first inaugural aren't spontaneous. They are carefully crafted works of rhetoric that begin as ideas on paper that are expertly shaped using the same writing tools available to us. An analysis of the speech reveals just how it was that President Roosevelt could unify and energize the American people in under 2,000 words. It's no accident this is known as FDR's No Fear But Fear speech. Calming the fears of anxious Americans was Roosevelt's main objective. Ooh. So now we get some of these like buzzwords. What are these buzzwords for? What? Oh gosh, my neighbor's smoking outside and it smells so bad. Oh, I hate this apartment. I can't wait until I move out. I'm trying to figure out what this is for. Like, what am I supposed to do with this? But, okay. I guess we'll just move on. Whatever. Before we analyze the No Fear But Fear speech, let's preview by thinking about the fears Americans faced when it was given. How much do you already know about the Great Depression? The Great Depression began before Franklin Delano Roosevelt became president. Is this true or false? Oh, I actually don't know. I think that's true. Yes, Roosevelt was sworn in after more than 3 years of economic crisis. Okay, so FDR was, like, the recession was already happening by the time FDR became president. So he literally just jumped in and there was, like, all these issues already. Thousands of banks closed and billions of dollars were lost. Yes. Almost 4,000 banks closed the year before Roosevelt took office. That's a lot of banks. And if you think about it, when a bank closes, that basically means that people just lose their money because like, the only way that a bank can function is if it has money in it. So the reason why a bank might close is because everyone pulls their money out because of something like a recession. On average, hourly wages were cut. I'm gonna guess that was true. So correct, those who had wages cut were lucky compared to the 1 in 4 Americans who were unemployed. 1 in 4, dang, that's a lot of people. People in the city suffered, but those on farms didn't. I'm gonna guess that's false. So correct, farm production dropped to pre-Civil War levels. Oh my gosh, pre-Civil War. Y'all, that's like a really, that's like a really big difference. The richest Americans became poor and the poor became poorer. I'm gonna guess that's true. Incorrect, try again. Oh my gosh, are you gonna say the rich became richer? Almost everyone was affected. Former millionaires shared the homeless camps that sprung up all over the country. Oh, I misread that. The richest Americans became richer. Okay, I read that as like the richest Americans became poor. Okay, I just misread that. All right. People were afraid and losing hope. Yes, they were definitely losing hope during this time. Wow, 20,000 suicides. I do remember seeing that in a documentary, like not the suicides, but like seeing that statistic and how like when all of this was going on, people would literally just like they would like lose their jobs and then they would like go home and kill themselves because they felt like they had nothing more, like they couldn't provide for themselves anymore. Very unfortunate. All right, so I guess we're on to the next page. So as you listen to and read Franklin Delano Roosevelt's first inaugural address, think about what it must have been like to be an American during the Great Depression. What does this speech need to accomplish? Would the new president's speech make you less afraid if you were there? So is this, watch a brief film clip of Franklin Delano's speech and then read the fuller excerpt. The president's language will challenge you. As you read, you may need to pause and select show paraphrasing to reveal a more straightforward rewording of FDR's language. You will return to this speech to write an essay in the next lesson, so read carefully. Alrighty, so let's go ahead and watch the clip of this.
It is preeminently the time to speak the truth frankly and boldly. Nor need we shrink from honestly facing conditions in our country today. This great nation will endure as it has endured, will revive and will prosper. So first of all, let me assert my firm belief that the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. Nameless, unreasoning, unjustified terror, which paralyzes needed effort to convert retreat into advance.
Cool. So 45 seconds, and I think that like that line that he says about how like the only thing that we have to fear is fear itself, that's definitely one of the most famous lines of his speech, and I think that's probably the most quoted line from his speech as well. So I already rode through this directions, but I guess we will read through the entire text now, which is, I mean, realistically, look, that's pretty short. Like that's not very long at all for a speech. I mean, just to, again, give you a comparison, chapters of books tend to be longer than this. So let's go ahead and start. So I'm certain that my fellow Americans expect that I will address them with a candor and a decision which the present situation requires. This is preeminently the time to speak the truth, the whole truth, frankly and boldly. So again, what is this paraphrase? So as your new president, you expect me to be truthful. Circumstances require that you know the whole story about our national situation. This great nation will endure as it has endured and will revive and will prosper. So first of all, let me assert my firm belief that the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. Nameless, unreasoning, unjustified terror which paralyzes needed efforts to convert, retreat, and to advance. So, to paraphrase that, let me assure you that our country has come through hard times before. We will recover, but the only thing that can stop us is paralyzing fear. We shouldn't be afraid. There are no specific obstacles we can't overcome, and there are no good reasons we should not move forward. What will Roosevelt be able to do in a speech that is more difficult to do in writing? What can be experienced hearing the speech that may not be possible reading it? Make note of your response for later reference. So this right here, this question, and again, it does say to make note of your response. I think that one of the things that Roosevelt is going to be able to do in his speech that you can't necessarily do through writing is, and it would come down to like kind of the more performative aspects of it. Like, you know, a lot of our presidents are very good speakers. I think our most recent example of a president with excellent speaking ability would be President Obama. And oftentimes we don't think about that as an important skill for a president to have, or an important skill for a political leader to have. But like the amount of trust and support that you can actually build just through your speaking ability, and just through things like using things like repetition, parallel structures, you know, all those things you learn in comm studies. It's actually pretty impressive about what you can say and what you can do, and like how people can buy into that. So I do think that like the delivery of a speech versus just having writing is going to make a pretty big difference. And sorry if you see me playing with my hair a lot. I just washed my hair this morning and it's been like 2 hours, no, like an hour, and it still hasn't like completely dried all the way. So I'm still just kind of like combing through it so that way I can help it to dry a little bit better. So in every dark hour of our national life, of leadership, of frankness and vigor has met with that understanding and support of the people themselves, which is essential to victory. I'm convinced that you will again give that support to leadership in these critical days. And what he is saying is, in our history, honesty from leaders has been rewarded with support. We have always pulled together. I know that you will support me as your leader now too. In such a spirit, we face our common difficulties. Values have shrunken to fantastic levels. Taxes have risen. Our ability to pay has fallen. Government of all kinds is faced by serious curtailment of income. The means of exchange are frozen in the currents of trade. The withered leaves of industrial enterprise lie on every side. Farmers find no markets for their produce. The savings of many years in thousands of families are gone. More important, a host of unemployed citizens face the grim problem of existence and an equally great number toil with the little return. Only a foolish optimist can deny the dark realities of the moment. Oh my gosh. Okay, so let me just point out right now. If you were just reading this, like silent reading, this would look so boring. But like when you actually say this out loud, it flows so well. And for some of you at home, like I really recommend that you try just reading some of these chunks out loud and just seeing how it like flows together. I mean, there's almost like this kind of like in the performance world, we would call this like a cadence. A cadence kind of refers to like a beat kind of thing, or a rhythm. Yeah, I guess it'd be more so of a rhythm, not necessarily a beat, because cadences are usually, I don't know. I don't want to get into like all the definitions of that because it doesn't matter. But like there is a cadence to this, and the easiest way to think about like how cadence can match with like talking ability is like through rap. So rap and hip hop music is all about the cadence. Like it's all about it's not just about like the words that you're putting down, but it's also about like, can you get the words to go down in the right way? And so this speech right here has a really good cadence, and that's something that I just noticed just from reading it out loud. So paraphrasing, this is what he's saying. We have challenges to face together. Property values have drastically fallen. Taxes are higher, even though our ability to pay has decreased. National, state, and local governments have less money to provide services. The financial markets aren't functioning. Businesses are falling. Farmers aren't finding buyers for their goods. Families have lost all their savings. Worst of all, millions of Americans are unemployed and barely surviving, and an equal number have jobs, but with pay too low to meet their needs. Even the most optimistic must admit that these are terrible times. So if you were to like comparing these two right here, I personally noticed that like this does not flow nearly as well as this does. So again, FDR is being very intentional about about the way he wrote his speech and also the way that he performed his speech. So compared with the perils with our forefathers conquered because they believed and were not afraid, we have still much to be thankful for. Nature still offers her bounty and human efforts have multiplied it. Plenty is at our doorstep, but happiness lies not in the mere possession of money. It lies in the joy of achievement. In the thrill of creative effort, the joy and moral stimulation of work no longer must be forgotten in the mad chase of evanescent profits. These dark days will be worth all they cost us if they teach us that our true destiny is not to be ministered unto, but to minister to ourselves and to our fellow men. Small wonder that confidence languishes, for it thrives only on honesty, on honor, on the sacredness of obligations, on faithful protection, on unselfish performance. Without them, it cannot live. Wow, that's a very rich section as well. I would say this section, the cadence isn't quite the same as this other section that I really liked, the rhythm, but this section had some really rich vocabulary that really helped to like drive forward. And if you don't understand all of the vocabulary, unfortunately, it means you are going to miss some of the meaning behind it. But luckily, we have paraphrasing. So as bad as it seems, our current situation isn't as bad as that faced by brave generations of Americans who came before us. We still have the natural resources to be prosperous. All that is needed is hard work. Hard work will provide us with all we need. It will also make us happy and remind us that success is not measured in profits. Rather, success comes through achievement. Money cannot buy happiness. All of the difficulties we have... Oh, sorry, I just had a throat thing. We had experience will be worth it if we learn that lesson. It's time to replace self-interest with unselfish concern for others. If we can restore our beliefs in each other as honest, honorable, and kind, then we can confidently and bravely move forward. So again, we got another question right here. So what are the perils faced by our forefathers that Roosevelt mentions above? What emotion is Roosevelt hoping to inspire in his audience with this comparison of current troubles to past crises? Make note of your response for later reference. So, the American forefathers, when they first came here, one of the big struggles that they had to deal with, of course, is just trying to establish a new society in a new land, and also they had to fight for their right to be a country, as they were trying to escape, or they were trying to they were trying to not be under the control of the King of England anymore. And so in terms of what emotion that Roosevelt is trying to get across, I feel like Roosevelt is probably trying to get across this idea of hey, we've been through worse before. America has been through worse before, so we can get through this together. So the next line says, restoration calls, however, not for changes in ethics alone. This nation also asks for action, and action now. What does that mean? Restoring our belief in each other is not enough, though. We need to act, and to act now. So this is kind of like a call to action. FDR was pretty well known for his calls to action. He had other speeches as well where he did quite a few call to action type things. So our greatest primary task is to put people to work. This is no unsolvable problem if we face it wisely and courageously. It can be accomplished in part by direct recruiting by the government itself, treating the task as we would treat the emergency of war, but at the same time, through this employment, accomplishing greatly needed projects to stimulate and reorganize the use of our natural resources. So that's what is he saying? The first thing we need to do is to get people back to work. This can be done if we are brave enough to do what makes sense. We need to declare war on unemployment. The federal government can do its part by directly hiring workers in the same way that in war we would recruit soldiers. Such a workforce will be able to accomplish important national projects and make better use for our natural resources. So up here we get this kind of call to action, and now he's actually going into our detail about what we need to do as a country. So hand in hand with this, we must frankly recognize the overbalance of population in our industrial centers and, by engaging on a national scale in redistribution, endeavor to provide a better use of the land for those best fitted for the land. The task can be helped by definite efforts to raise the values of agricultural products, and with this, the power to purchase the output of our cities. It can be helped by preventing realistically the tragedy of the growing loss through foreclosure of our small homes and our farms. It can be helped by insistence that the federal, state, and local governments act forthwith, interesting word, on the demand that their costs be drastically reduced. It can be helped by unifying our relief activities, which today are often scattered, uneconomical, and unequal. It can be helped by national planning for and supervision of all forms of transportation and of communications and other utilities which have a definitely public character. There are many ways in which it can be helped, but it can never be helped merely by talking about it. We must act, and act quickly. So throughout this, we get some really beautiful parallel structures and repetition. This whole line of like the "it can be helped." So he's going through, you know, his list of like the "it can be helped," "it can be helped," "it can be helped." It's one of the tools that you might have learned in your comm studies class. One of the persuasive techniques you can use to actually draw in your listener or draw in your reader better. So let's take a look at the paraphrasing. So in doing this, we must also confront our current mismanagement of resources. We must make a national effort to increase farm production and deliver to our cities. We must make a national effort to save farms and homes from bank foreclosure. We must make a national effort to drastically reduce wasteful operating costs at all levels of government. We must make a national effort to better organize and deliver emergency relief. We must make a national effort to direct the planning and operation of our infrastructure. The federal government has the power to help in many ways, but talking about it won't help anything. We need to act, and we need to act quickly. I'm going to take a drink really quick. I've been talking a lot. So we got a question right here. What specific words are used by Roosevelt to demonstrate that all Americans must do their part if the nation is to recover? Why is the order of responsibility important in his call for immediate action? Make a note for later response. I mean, let me take a look at this. So how does he say it? Well, up here, he talks about how this nation asked for action, and as all of us are part of the nation, I guess that could be a way to like call us all together. Right here, he says our, so that use of like the plural personal pronoun to say like we, our, like this is something we have to do together. And I'm sure we're going to see more examples of like Roosevelt kind of calling all of us together later in the speech. So through this program of action, we address ourselves to putting our own national house in order. I favor as a practical policy the putting of first things first. I shall spare no effort. The emergency at home cannot wait. So this means that the actions that I propose are necessary to be successful. They must be our priority. This is an emergency situation. Wow, that's actually like a really sneaky way to say this. Because like when I read this, I didn't quite know what he was implying, but then when it just says that he's basically just saying like, hey, I have a plan and we have to follow through with my plan. And I didn't get that at all from reading this. So that's actually like pretty crafty, pretty good of him. So if I read the temper of our people correctly, we now realize, as we have never realized before, our interdependence on each other, that we cannot merely take, but we must give as well. That if we were to go forward, we must move as a trained and loyal army willing to sacrifice for the good of a common discipline, because without such discipline, no progress is made, no leadership becomes effective. We are, I know, ready and willing to submit ourselves and property to such discipline, because it makes possible a leadership which aims at a larger good. This I propose to offer, pledging that a larger purpose will bind upon us all as a sacred obligation with a unity of duty hitherto evoked only in a time of armed strife. Holy moly, hitherto. Wow, I haven't heard that word in a hot minute. I can tell that, like never before, we see how important it is to work together and for each other. We must think of ourselves as disciplined soldiers fighting for a common cause. We can trust that our leaders have our victory as their priority. If we take on our challenges as soldiers take on their duty in a war, then we will certainly succeed. Wow, all of that kind of sums up in a pretty short way. So we got another question right here. So Roosevelt compares the American people here to a trained and loyal army. What is his role in this army, and why is this comparison effective? Make note of your response for later reference. So for some of you who don't know out there, one of the duties of the president is actually that they do run the military. Like, they are in charge of the military and they have control over the military. That's why the president has the ability to like do things like declare war. They have the ability to do things like pull troops out of certain parts of the world. So like when Roosevelt talks about, when he compares us to an army, he's basically saying like, hey, all of us, we need to work together as a team in the same way that an army would. But at the same time, this means that you also have to listen to me because I, the president, am in charge of the army. So with this pledge taken, I assume unhesitantly the leadership of this great army of our people dedicated to a disciplined attack upon our common problems. For the trust reposed in me, I will return the courage and the devotion that befit the time. I can do no less. This means I promise that as your general in this war of national recovery, I will lead you with courage and my full devotion. That is my duty as your president. So again, this is kind of repeating what I just actually said about how he's comparing the entire country to an army, because he is saying that, hey, we all have to come together and we all have to work together, but you all have to listen to me and you all have to trust me as your leader. So actually very powerful comparison and a very powerful analogy right there. So right here it says, we face the arduous days that lie before us in the warm courage of the... Oh. Okay, thanks Buzz. With the clear consciousness of seeking old and precious moral values, with the clean satisfaction that comes from the stern performance of duty by old and young alike. We do not distrust the future of essential democracy. The people of the United States have not failed. In their need, they have registered a mandate that they want direct, vigorous action. Oops. They have asked for discipline and direction under leadership. They have made me, the president, the present instrument of their wishes. In spite of the gift, I take it. So what this means is, we move forward confident that we are unified in our goals. Old and young, we will rely on what has made us great in the past, while at the same time embracing necessary changes. We are confident in our system of government. The people have spoken and demand action. The people have elected me to lead them. I accept and will do my duty. So pretty short speech, but like he says quite a bit throughout this. He basically has a call to action for us, and he also has kind of like this presidential promise kind of thing where he's basically saying like, hey, I'm gonna do everything that I can to get us out of this recession, and I need all of you to like be on my team for this. Cool. So we read through it. What is it gonna have us do next? So it's hard to imagine ourselves in the place of those who were there at President Roosevelt's inauguration. Everyone, though, knows what it means to be afraid. Fear is a universal human experience. Did Roosevelt succeed in convincing his audience that, quote, the only thing we have to fear is fear itself? Here are some of the reactions to the speech you've just read and that were sent to the president from those who experienced it live. I had such a vibrant and electric feeling coming over me. Its clarity, logic, and sincerity struck us. A feeling almost impossible to describe came over me. It was a feeling of renewed hope, a feeling that this old world is again going to be a pretty good place after all, a feeling that soon this life will be worth living. Wow, that's a holy moly. I mean, I guess that makes sense though. If they're in a recession, a lot of people are, not living a good life, obviously. Like, a lot of people are living in poverty. A lot of people are probably homeless, not getting enough food, enough resources, etc. So this is a classical example of a skilled writer using the tools of language to create a successful speech. So the assignment for this is going to be complete the reading and self-checks in this lesson, review Franklin Delano Roosevelt's first inaugural address, carefully consider the choices he made that resulted in calming the fears of this nation, and then you have to submit the quiz about this. So yeah, so that's basically your assignment. Now, when it comes to the quiz, I'm not going to do the entire quiz, but I do just want to take a look at the kind of short answer responses down here. So you have 2 short answer responses, which are going to require you to actually like do some thinking and write something out. And when you're doing the short answer responses, I did leave a little note for you right here, just that next week you will be assigned a writing assignment based on FDR speech, so your answer to the next question will help you gather evidence for this assignment. The better evidence you try to find now, the easier the writing assignment will be next week. This is also a really good time to get Mr. Herr's opinion on what evidence you might want to use. So basically, like, the reason why I'm assigning you this question in particular is because I want you to find the evidence that you're going to need to actually answer the prompt, like the writing prompt next week. So I want you to do another deep dive of the speech, and you can even rewind in this video if you want to look at some of the scenes, like some of the clips that I personally pointed out. There are obviously more than just what I pointed out, but those were just the things that jumped out to me right away. Yeah, so find that evidence, and again, you have to explain 2 things, and that would be 2 techniques or 2 strategies that he used to persuade the American public. These can be any 2 things. Yeah. If you have any questions, make sure to drop me an email, or you can also drop into my Google Meet office hour that happens Wednesday? Yeah, on Wednesday. It happens on Wednesday, so you can drop in if you would like to ask some questions about this assignment. I think that's all I've got for you today, and I think that's all I've got for this lesson so far. I do have a little unrelated to class question, and it's pretty simple. It's just like, or this one is like not less of a question and more so just like a, hey, upload your favorite meme, video, picture, TikTok, or whatever that has literally made you laugh out loud recently. I haven't posted mine yet, so I'll have to come up here and post mine eventually. But thank you so much for watching this if you were watching this live, but also if you are watching this after the fact, thank you as well. Oh my gosh, John, I didn't even see that you were in the chat. I didn't have my chat pulled up, my bad. John, what the heck? Lead paint tastes better than regular? Oh my gosh, you need help. Okay, cool. So I think I'm gonna end the English 10 stream right there because we don't have any more curriculum to go through. And I don't know. I don't want to just sit on stream for 20 minutes and do nothing. I don't know. Cool. Alright. Yeah. We're gonna call it. We're gonna call it. Tomorrow is Terraria with Sam. Come join us. You know, John, I would love to come join all of you for Terraria because I really like playing Terraria. I don't exactly know what the rules are for me doing stuff like that with students though. Because here's the dealio. I am actually not allowed to communicate with students on personal social media accounts. So, like, and I think when they say that, I think they mean like I'm not allowed to privately communicate with students on a social media account. So, for example, like I wouldn't be able to like do a private. I shouldn't do private Instagram messages to people. If people comment, if like students comment on my Instagram post, or if I comment on a student's Instagram post, but it's like public, I think that's okay. So like I don't exactly know what the rule is for playing games online with students, because technically it's public, but also at the same time it's like not public because I don't know. I really don't know what the rule is about it, so as fun as it sounds, I don't know about it. But what about joining a server with students? Yeah, I really don't know what the rules are around it. I guess I could ask like my supervisor and just be like, hey, what's like the rule around this? Like, it's not social media. I don't know, John. I also feel like if I were to come join the Terraria though, I feel like people would not be able to be themselves because like, you know, a lot of students are not like, a lot of students act differently around other students versus acting around teachers. So if I were to come in, I feel like everyone would just be like different. And, you know, that's not necessarily something that we want. So, I don't know. We'll see. Oh my gosh, I just got a buttload of emails. What the heck? Oh. Okay, apparently one of my classes is messed up. Well, anyway, you have a good one. Okay, thanks, John. I'll see if I do end up on the stream tomorrow, or if I do end up on the server tomorrow. We'll see what happens. Okay, apparently one of my buzz quizzes is... Where's the buzz quiz? Is this the buzz quiz? Oh, why do none of these have due dates? Okay. Alright, that's cool. Save. Is this also... okay. Does this have a time limit? Okay, that doesn't have a time limit. Cool. How about this one? Okay. Awesome. Alright, y'all. Thanks for tuning in. I am going to end the stream right now, though, because I have to actually do some grading, and I can't do the grading on stream. Or at least I haven't found a good way to do grading on stream yet. And I don't think I have anything worth grading on stream anyways, because I think the only thing meaningful to grade on stream would be like a longer writing assignment that I could like show people like, hey, these are the things that I'm looking at when I'm grading, or like these are the things that an English teacher typically looks at when grading. And I haven't assigned any of those yet. So yeah, no grading on stream yet. Thank you for tuning in. If you are watching this live or if you're watching this after the fact, thank you for tuning in. I hope you all have a wonderful day.